It's impact time. Your host, Thornell Jones from the Ovation Agency, and the wondrous, and I do mean wondrous, fantastic Negrito, who is a three-time Grammy winner in 2017, 2019, and 2021. And today we're going to talk about his legacy through his album, White Jesus, Black Problems. It truly is an ode to the power of love and family. Gentlemen, it's all yours.
How you doing, man?
Well, I'm good. I'm better than some, not as good as others, and I accept that and just try to be grateful.
Oh, gratitude is the foundation of it all, isn't it?
I mean, it really is underrated and not spoke of enough. Gratitude, yeah.
I have a friend of mine who almost every day sends me some kind of meme that's about gratitude.
I love that.
Yeah,
Love
every
that.
day keeps it very much top of mind for me. So when I start bitching and moaning, I just remember, oh yeah.
I mean, it's so important.
Yeah, it is. I have to remind myself, say thank you.
Yeah.
Even for the bad stuff, say thank you because you're learning something from it.
The bad stuff is usually where you learn the most.
That is true. That is very true. I have been, last time we spoke was like 2 years ago.
Uh-huh.
And I loved how you created a base for yourself there in Oakland in that storefront. It is a beautiful thing. And when when I was able to log in, I see that your Zoom name down there says Storefront Records. That's really cool. How long have you been there?
Storefront, I would say I've been in that location about five. Man, that COVID experience really makes everything weird. I guess 5 years now, but
Right.
I launched the label during the pandemic. Though I had the space, but I decided to actually launch the label.
Were you in Oakland the whole time during the pandemic?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there was no other place to go. We were right there.
That part. Yeah,
Yeah.
there were like friends of mine. It's like they were able to escape and go to like some remote island or something, or places that were a little bit more lax or whatever. I know I was in New York in the Bronx, and
Okay.
like, right when it started, it was they were saying that the COVID positivity rate in my neighborhood was around 70%.
Geez.
So of course I got it,
Ah,
and it was horrible.
so you had it early
I
on.
had it very early. In fact, the weekend that they first did the first lockdown on the 13th of March in New York, I was sick in the bed with it.
Oh my God, man, that must have been terrifying.
It was terrifying because we didn't know what it was, and at first I was just like, oh, I just have something, whatever,
Right.
and then it went on and on and on. It was scary. It was
mean,
really scary. I can't.
and
I
New
can't.
York had a high mortality rate.
Yes, absolutely. It was really, the thing about it is, I don't, I'm a very healthy person. I've been really health conscious all my life, and not that I've been perfect or anything like that, but, I don't get sick a lot. So, when I get sick, I'm like a big baby.
Right.
you know, I admit I'm like a big baby. It just went on and on. I had a fever for 12 days.
Oh my God, yeah, that's terrifying, man. Well, hopefully you had somebody there to take care of you. That's the most
Yeah.
important.
Yeah, my partner was here to take care of me, and I was very gratitude, blessed, to have someone who cared. I think for me also it was, in addition to having the fever, I was like really weak, and I couldn't like do anything for myself. I'm a very independent person,
Right.
and not being able to get around, I had to hold on to the wall to walk, down the hallway. It was
Hey,
crazy.
that's what look the lesson in that though.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
lesson in that is outstanding.
hmm That's the reason why, when I talk to artists now and I ask them about their pandemic experience, everyone um, was universally the same. It was an opportunity to go in.
Yes.
rather than to go out.
Yes.
And your experience led to some very interesting discoveries.
I mean, it's still unbelievable to me to this day, the story that I discovered in my family roots, my mother's maternal side. But then it absolutely was liberating, and it really explained my life and my choices, and how outside the box that I've always thought and felt. And
Uh-huh.
wow, I came from some people that were outside of the box, 270 years ago. There was no
Right,
more outside of the box in that story.
right, right. And so, exactly. Being a rebel was in your blood.
It's in my blood, yeah.
It's literally in your blood.
Literally in my blood, yeah. It was, but it was such a beautiful moment. I think I kept reading that page over and over and over and over again. I still go back to read it. It's just extremely powerful.
So, did you like use a what do you call it? Which service did you use? I guess, I mean, not to make it a commercial, but
I use ancestry.com, and as soon as I opened it up, there were things that were revealed to me that were completely shocking. One of the first ones was that my last name was completely made up by my dad, and my dad was hiding this entire family
uh-huh.
that I still haven't met, actually, and they're all from the Bahamas and Florida. So that was really the biggest shocker right there. It's just seeing for the first time my father's mother and finding out my father's real name. And,
Mm-hmm.
he had other children and other families, and it was pretty shocking. And all the information was right there on Ancestry. And then I got into my mother's side, but my dad's side
Mm-hmm.
was the first thing that blew me away.
I got to tell you, I so obviously here in the States, there's this narrative about the one drop rule and everything, and they teach us, um, that our blackness is framed, coming out of slavery. Our experience as black people is like attached to slavery, and I mean it is, and yet there's this whole community of freed black people. Um, I that movie 12 Years a Slave was about a freed black man who got caught
Right.
up. You know,
Yes.
um, I can't compare. I'll tell you something. I'm inspired by your journey here to kind of dig into my family a little bit. Now, I didn't do Ancestry. I did 23andMe. And, and it's interesting, the more data they have in the pool, the more information they can give you. So, like, I guess it's been about 7 years ago now, maybe a little bit more than that, closer to 10. They were originally telling me, oh, your family is from Sierra Leone and da 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 da, and from Kenya. And I was like, oh, okay, that's interesting. And so I went to South Africa in 2015, and I met President Obama's grandmother and his uncle and stuff like that. I was like, oh, I might be related to you. I just got my
Yeah.
DNA, and it says I'm from Kenya, right? And then a couple years later, I went back in, and they had more data, and they're like, no, 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 you're from this other area. And I was like, okay, cool. And I said to myself, well, now that I know that the pool is changing, I was like, let me go check again. So it said that I was 17% from the area that is uh, Ghana, Cote d'Ivoire, and Sierra Leone. So that's one little pocket. 19.5% from the area which is Nigeria. So that's like the Kingdom of Benin. So which I'm not mad about that when I think of it in those terms. But 35% European.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't want to know about that. I have been always kind of very proud of my African heritage and the motherland and and your story has now inspired me. You know what? Who are these 35% folk? from
Yeah.
Scotland. Part of it was,
Okay.
I mean, it was Scotland and like Northern Europe.
Northwestern Europe. Yeah, that everyone
Yeah,
has that one. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
like.
Well, I
I
think the great thing I want to say about Ancestry is that I didn't even do the DNA test at all until about a year after the information was so much, and there's so
Right,
much documentation, there's so much paperwork that you can
right.
find. I don't know if you can, I haven't done 23andMe, but that was the most compelling and interesting and revealing thing for me was that when you're on Ancestry, this is documents upon
Mm,
documents upon documents. I mean, the English kept very good records, you know.
right.
So that was incredible. It's just explaining the way people looked and people that were enslaved. Well, she was 5'3" and this complexion. It was just fascinating reading that information. So I didn't do what you did till a year later.
Uh-huh.
Actually, all right, let's see what the percentages are. So
Right,
yeah,
right.
the story is what got me on Ancestry.com because there's so much physical documentation.
Well, you have inspired me to go back and do it under Ancestry.com. I maybe I should invest a little bit of money. There's two different sides of it: the Ancestry.com piece of it, and I want to do African ancestry too because I'm interested in getting down to the tribe level. You know,
Right, I
really.
get it. What's funny, the interesting thing is that the paperwork that I found, that this story, this page, when I kept digging where it came from, the source was AfricanAncestry.com.
Oh, very interesting.
African
Okay.
Ancestry has this story of Elizabeth Gallimore presented in a Million County Court for unlawfully cohabitating with a Negro slave belonging to Henry Jones and having several mulatto children. And then it goes on to say something about she didn't show up for the court hearing and ran away for 10 years. And then they finally caught up. And I thought, okay, that's definitely my grandma. I'm not showing up for court, you know what I mean?
Oh,
So,
hey.
so that was,
Oh my goodness.
it was just interesting. And then it had the names of all the children.
Mm-hmm.
And the George Gallimore was was my sixth grandfather. Yes. So, and it just went from him down to Gallimore, to Flood, to Cousins. And then that's where I recognized, well, Cousins, that's my great, great, great grandmother. Had a picture of her. Always wondered why these people were dressed so stylish and fine during the time of slavery. I always wondered it, and it was never an answer. The answer was they were free Black people. During that time in Virginia, it was 50,000 free Black people.
Oh, that's quite a bit,
That's quite
especially
a
in
bit.
that time.
I'm talking about Virginia.
Yeah, that's quite a bit.
That's quite a bit. So there's a massive community of Black, free Black people. They were called it said Register of Free Negroes. That's Registered Free Negroes. So that was my mother's maternal side. And I wondered, how did that happen? And that's how I traced the story of Elizabeth Gallimore. When the children were born, they were deemed bound apprentice because the mother was not a slave. The mother was an indentured servant. So they were born indentured servants. Then, from what I understand, worked X amount, I think 7 years, and then they were free.
Mm. You know what? This is really fascinating to me because, like, when you think about like the caste system in India,
Yeah.
think about the whole notion of indentured servants. I know what it is as a concept, but to have a little bit more meat on that is kind of cool.
Well,
As I was,
the interesting thing to me, which helped me write the music, was I thought, wow, I guess it was money. I guess, I mean, if you had the money, you could buy your freedom. And I thought, which made me write the first song on the record, which is "Everything Goes to the Highest Bidder." I just thought, wow, we're really focused on this one element, but it's really money. All someone had to do is say, listen, I got all this money and I'll buy these 10 enslaved people and take them up north. Sure, do what you want with them. Wow.
yeah, uh, it's sobering when you think of it like that.
Sobering.
Very.
It really makes you question our education system and the narrative and what we're being taught, the narrative.
Are you really going there? Are you really going there?
I mean, I'm parked, cars parked.
The car's parked. Oh, yes, please. Okay, so we jumped right into it.
I'm sorry,
And,
we just talked.
no, this is what's called an artist conversation. It's not an interview. We're having a conversation, and I am enjoying this so much.
Yeah.
But for people who don't know what we're talking about, this is the album, White Jesus, Black Problems. And I love this title, not even knowing the backstory. And then when Greg, shared that, there's a documentary and this album was born out of the discovery of your family as freed Blacks. And I was like, wow, that's a whole different angle.
Whole different.
Now I do know some free Blacks. In fact, I had a friend when I lived in California who was a Black family who owned slaves.
I've heard of them too. Yes, I've heard of them. But I kind of looked at it like this too, is that I was just recently reading some more of Alex Haley's memoirs, and it was just interesting, like his take on all of it. It's like, although I did find those free African Americans in my family, they didn't start off free. The guy I called Grandfather Courage,
right? He
started off as an enslaved person, and because he was out his damn mind, as I like to say, and hooked up with a white indentured servant, they became free. So I always want to mention that, like, well, he didn't start off free. And there's 4 family lines. You got your mama got 2 lines, daddy got 2 lines. All the rest of my bloodlines were enslaved people. My father's family and my mother's paternal side were all enslaved. So I don't want to take away from the impact, if I may say the word, of that transatlantic slave trade, which was brutal and inhumane. So I just wanted to also say that.
Well, it's important. I mean, my father's family was in Maryland, and which is below the Mason-Dixon line.
Right.
And we have all kinds of folklore about the intermarriage between the Indians that were there, and in our family, one of my great grandmother was apparently a Cherokee. At least that's the lore, because my DNA doesn't bear that out.
DNA, I know, right?
Right.
I found out there was so many lies. Like I said, my last name, which looks pretty outrageous, is completely fabricated.
How do you pronounce your last name?
You know what's interesting? You know how you pronounce my last name? White Jesus, Black Problems. I'm telling you. I want to tell you that, because that originally where I came up with the title. When I was just sitting there, I was in a hotel room like this. I was in Atlanta, and I thought about my dad, who was born in 1905. He was a very clever guy, very smart. And I thought imagine him sitting there, like spending the whole day coming up with this name. How can I fight this institution of racism? How can I trick these white people? How can I fool these? How can I make them think that I'm somebody else? And I thought, damn, Jesus, Black Problems. That's where I really thought of that, because that name, I'm telling you, anywhere I've been in the world, I can go down to the coffee shop, I can talk to you, and people look at my name. And they go, and I think that is the intention. My dad must have been thinking, damn, this whole institution of white supremacy. Damn, I don't want to protest. I'm not a sign holder. I'm not going to be a victim. I'm going to make up a last name that no one can pronounce. And it's totally kind of ambiguous, and you don't know where it's from. I thought it was such a great weapon against an institution of racism, white supremacy. Let's just say what it is. And no matter how abusive and horrible my dad was, which he was also, what a brilliant genius to come up with that. This is pre-Malcolm X, all that. I mean, my dad was born in 1905. He had me, he was 63, my mother was 30. So,
well, all right, Daddy.
Yeah, gone daddy. He made a lot of people mad, but he was older than my grandmother.
That's
And my grand, yeah, my grandmother was still mad. I mean, my whole life they talk about my dad. I had to go, oh man, let me put on my protective gear. They got to talk about
right.
that.
Exactly. Oh, I understand.
You can tell by my reaction. He's a hero and a villain to me. I don't think any of our parents were all of one thing. I don't think we're all one thing.
Yeah, I think that. I mean, I totally agree. It's interesting that you speak. Your dad was born 5 years after my grandmother,
Exactly. Do you see what I'm saying?
and she passed quite a long time ago.
So it really, I mean, I was gonna be outside the box, brother, on day
Right.
one. With that situation, it was gonna be like, y'all crazy, and
Right.
y'all are different, and y'all are weird, and stay away from us. You
Right.
know, we got a lot of that growing up, but I thought not only was my dad's side tumultuous and nuts, and then I found like my mom, who was always pretending to be somebody, I was like, you know, I want to say it, a word I can't say. You just as crazy too.
Right. It's true.
Yeah.
And you know what's so funny? I was just watching this movie. It's it was a Tyler Perry movie about I can't remember, something, the Jazz Band Blues or something like that, and on Netflix. It was actually quite good. And just like in Imitation of Life, this mother and this daughter, both of them, and not just the daughter, were passing and had married into this family, and it was all this stuff. And I was just like, how do you think you were going to get away with this? I just don't understand how you can. I mean, I can appreciate wanting to reinvent yourself. I can. And I guess that was an open option to them and they chose it. But like my mother's family is all very, very fair. So maybe 2 generations ago, there was a dominant, Caucasian strain. And I'm curious to really ask those questions. But, we go to the family reunion and nobody dares ask.
That's how they are. Look, the Southern people are always like that. Just like, but you know what's funny to me? Black people, we can always tell. You don't care how light you are. We know. We be like,
you're right. You are so right.
Strand of hair. I see that little strand.
Okay.
We know. I don't know how we know, but damn, we know.
We do know. We do know. I think it's because we maybe it's our DNA is resonating, and it's like, oh, okay.
You know what I think? You said something interesting as you started out this conversation. And I felt it kind of the same way, man. My identity was so black, was so black. Mm-hmm. Well, black just means you're a hybrid. That's all it means. There's Africans, and there's black folks.
That's true.
To me, that term, you're a black folk. You mix with white, you mix with black, you mix with maybe some natives, you're a hybrid Negro. That's what we are. And so that's what black.
I'm willing to claim that now. I mean, now. I'm really to claim that now, but it certainly wasn't. And I remember like going back to my childhood, and that's one of the things that kind of the album title just really kind of resonated with me, because I would go visit both of my grandmothers, and there were 2 pictures. Well, 3. There was a picture of Martin Luther King, there was a picture of John F. Kennedy, and a picture of white Jesus.
There you go.
But we were going through, protesting and on and on. And I was just like, this is my life right here.
Yeah, I mean, I think listen, people originally, there's a chorus of people tell me, don't make this number 1. And people are like, man, you're a 3-time Grammy winner. You're this and that. You about to ruin it. There's all that, a lot of fear. And then there was also, after I made it, there was people who were on one side disappointed that it wasn't this militant film and we about to put on your boots, get your jackets, get your signs, we about to go get them. They were very unhappy about that. And then there was the other side of people, which I got tons of hate mail, which I still get. Really? And my thing has been flagged on social media as hate speech.
Oh, come on. I'm really disappointed to hear that. And I just think that, okay, so let me just say, I really, really enjoyed this album on so many different levels. It starts out with Venomous Dogma, which it's almost Beatlesque. and with all its, I'll just say movements. And I was just like, oh, okay. So you settle in, and from the get go, it's going to be a very musical record, and it just careens and meanders through all these different styles and like parenthetical musical statements and things like that. So it's such a musical album. I loved it just for that. And then when I started like unpacking, like I got to be honest with you, I was streaming it, so I didn't have the lyrics. I was like, "What did you just say? What did you say?" I would run it back. What did you just say? What did you say? And I'm sitting here with the album, and I realized that this is for people who don't know. You got to go get the vinyl because the lyrics are in a fold out. So this is really important to getting inside of these lyrics and understanding what he's talking about. And of course, you talk in metaphor and parable, but it's so powerful. And for me, it was one of those records that it was just like it's a high watermark that I think that people will be talking about for many, many years. Because like you said, there were some people who would be disappointed because it wasn't more militant. It was more, it felt more, I just use the word descriptive. It was like um, matter of fact and descriptive of situations and circumstances rather than um, you know judgmental and wagging a finger and all that. That's my take.
The way I look at it is that it was very militant in the sense of the way that love is so powerful, man. It was militant in that way, in the fact, man, do you know you could have took up arms against these people, but
Yep.
it wouldn't have been as powerful as a woman, especially a white woman in the 1700s with all of her white privilege, to make that decision. And then for a Black enslaved man to make that decision, to be so drawn to each other, to choose the power of love over all the threats of lynching, all the threats of killing you, all these threats that you just decided, well, it's 1750, you're a white woman, I'm a Black man, let's start a family on this tobacco plantation. Ain't nothing more militant than that. So I think there's nuances, people miss it because sometimes we live in a very literal world. What it is that it isn't even about me. It's a love story. It's kind of like Romeo and Juliet, and it's about the courage of my seventh generation grandparents, who I'm so proud of, and so honored to be their seventh generation grandson. I think that's what it's really about. And I think the other component to me, which was so inspiring, was that, wow, anything can be done. I've always known this. I mean, 8 years ago, I picked up a guitar and started playing on the streets because there's this industry that wouldn't let me in.
Yeah.
Anything, why did I know why I felt that way, because I came from people who felt the same way. And if they could accomplish what they did in the 1750s, we don't have any excuse for anything. And that's really what still inspires me and will for the rest of my life.
That is it's a lesson that we should all be taking from that. I think the thing that people and this is on purpose too. The thing that people now, or even when I was growing up, they miss is the notion of drawing on your history to inspire for your future.
Yes.
And this is what's so beautiful about this, is because you kind of always knew that you had a different approach, a different way of doing things. And now you understand, like we said before, it's in your blood, these are your people. But, I mean, I could go round and round and round. I have my favorites. What are your favorites on the record? I know you have ones that you just like, okay, I really like that.
Favorite songs, that's always very difficult to me for every album that I've made, but let me at least try.
Okay.
Every time I say one, then I go, no, this is my favorite. Oh man. One of my favorites, I would say, would be, and just one of them, would be Virginia Soil, because it really encompasses the entire story. And I love for me, like the blues, and people talk about the blues, the blues, the blues, the most important thing to me about the blues is not the guitar playing, not the swing, but the storytelling. We come from an oral tradition.
Yes.
And
Yes.
that is the most that's the most compelling thing about it. That maybe Nibbidip, like those really tell the story. You know, there's no metaphors, there's no creative talk. It's just like, this is what happened.
Right.
They dragged her into court on May 4th on a cloudy
Right.
rainy day. They told her love's against the law to my grandpa in Amelia County, VA, which is Virginia. So yeah, I love those two. If they're a couple of my favorites, you know, I don't
Well,
let
you
them.
know, I'm looking that back up again because I don't want to get it wrong. But when I went to Spotify for the first time, the two songs that are the top, streamers are "Oh Betty" and "They Go Low."
Yes.
So I said to myself, I'm not going to start there. I'm going to literally do the album from top to bottom. And so
Yeah.
as I got to "They Go Low," I was like, oh, I get it. I understand why
Right.
people like this record. I totally get it. And oh Betty actually has twice as many streams as that, but I get it. But man, let me tell you something. It made me uncomfortable and mad was the "You Don't Belong Here" piece.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
I mean, that was beautiful to me, and I remember being in the auditorium watching it. It's the most uncomfortable part of the whole film.
yeah, I can imagine. I can really imagine, and I want to see. I want to, get a chance to actually view the movie. In fact, I was supposed to be in New York when you guys did it in New York, and I wasn't able to make it.
Grafisca, yeah.
Yeah, but I will definitely get a chance to. But yeah, that "You Don't Belong Here" just, oof, it got underneath my skin.
I think that's what art should do, man. I just feel like that's why I make records, and that's why I'm wanted to be a creative person, is to communicate these emotions, these feelings, these very important stories to people. I think that's why I went out to the train station 8 years ago. And yeah, I'm very proud of that piece. It's of course I caught hell for that one too.
Well, I was about to say, you go back to the hate mail. What are people saying in the hate mail?
People, number one, it's always a demographic of people that are doing it, and they have a certain, you can look at their ideology is all pretty consistent. It's mostly they're accusing me of, let me quote, putting down white people to put black people up. They accuse me of being a racist, bigot. Yeah, that's always the theme. A lot of threatening language, and I know there's one guy, this went this thing, and all there is guns and guns, and went to his page, because sometimes I'll go look at the page, like who are these people?
Right.
But it's just like it's a certain demographic, and I understand why they would be angry, because man, I'm telling you, man, I'll be angry too sometimes at the truth. Sometimes it makes me angry and uncomfortable.
You just went there. I like that though.
Yeah. Sometimes I'll be like, God damn, really? That's me? Like, oh man, F you. Like, man, I don't want to hear that. It takes me a minute. And I gotta calm down. I gotta go, you know what? I got some things to work on, man. I'm probably the most damaged person in the room here, and I'm excessive egomaniac. I'm a recovering narcissist. Hey, I'm sorry. I got some work to do. Let's get out there and it's hard, I know, but I think that, wow, man, that's what inspires me to make records, for nothing else but that. That's why I want to be an artist, so that I can do that.
It's such a privilege for me to sit here and have this conversation with you, not just about this album, but your journey of self-discovery and your family history. This has just been really wonderful. Like I said, I started at the top of the album and went straight down to the bottom, and I always, I don't know, well, maybe just because I knew I was going to be talking to you, I kind of was asking myself, well, what are your favorite records, and which ones kind of resonated with you? And like I said, I'm glad I found these lyrics in here, because that's going to help me when I go back again and listen again. But Nibbidip was one of them. I like True to, You better have a gun.
You better have a gun. Yeah, it's too hard, man. It's like, it's too hard. There's too many hard.
That was tough for a certain demographic.
Well, I remember playing that the first time. I think it was Arizona, and people, they just sat there and looked at me. It was a festival, and there was not a clap, not a boo, nothing. It's like just silence. But again, I think all the artists that I love were always ones that made us feel something. And even if you hate my music, I want you to feel something, because I feel something.
Right.
And I feel as a human being so grateful and so inspired. And I feel ugly too, and I feel confused, and I feel happy, and I feel like a piece of shit, and I feel amazing. And I think we're on to something when we're getting to feel something, because I think it is extremely necessary to process this within our communities, global communities, whatever community that you belong to. And I think this is how we will fight hate and intolerance, is by expressing.
By expressing and acknowledging.
Acknowledging, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Both sides too. I think
both sides. Yeah, no, and that's exactly what I mean. Because I take myself as an example. I'm just like, I've always known that I, was descendant of enslaved people. I also, my name comes from my great grandfather.
Right.
So I mean, I always know he was born a slave in South Carolina, but it
now,
was
two greats. Great.
It was my great.
Oh, great.
My grandparents are a lot older than yours.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay. So okay. I'm sorry. It just that word.
No. It's cool. No, I totally get it.
Yeah.
So so I'm going to share with you something, because I thought it was kind of twisted, but now I understand why. When I was growing up, and people would say, I would say, my name is Thornell Tobias Jones Jr. And so I'm honoring my dad with the junior, right? But Tobias was my great grandfather's name. And I would say, matter of factly, and he was born a slave. This is when I was in rural Connecticut.
Wow.
One of two black kids in the school, me and my sister.
Wow.
And this was very much about, and he was born a slave. And I'm 5 years old. I don't really know what that means to people, whatever. But I think when I look back on it, even as a little kid, I understood that the dignity that this young, where we learned later that his name really wasn't Tobias, it was Toby. This young Toby had, in order to endure that experience, was in me. I knew that as a little kid.
Right.
So it's not like I was proud that he was born a slave. It was saying he endured and was strong, and he was born a slave.
Acknowledge, because you're here.
Because I'm here. I'm here. And I'm 35% Northwest European. So I need to know a little bit more about that. And it's been, and candidly, it's been a little bit kind of like, I know it's there. It's been kind of like, the thing that you don't want to necessarily acknowledge, because your identity, for me, identity has been so caught up in being, the descendant of enslaved people, and being Black in America, and whatever that struggle meant. But it'd be very interesting. I'm inspired by your journey to learn more about that side of my family. Because
it's it's okay. It's
yes.
It's okay.
And there you have it. Because it is okay.
Okay.
It absolutely is okay. And in your experience and the way you frame it, it was the love between the two people, whether they be a Black man and a white woman, or a white woman and a Black man, was revolutionary.
Absolutely.
and we carry that into this present.
Yeah,
You know,
that was some revolutionary sex right there.
hey, how about that? In Revolutionary Day.
Yeah,
Okay,
can
what were
you
we
imagine that?
fighting?
Yeah, it was like they were like, we about to let the world know. Yeah.
Well,
Interesting.
I
Yeah.
have truly, truly enjoyed this time with you. Is there anything you want to share with me, share with the people?
I don't
I
know.
am after 3 Grammys in contemporary blues. They've decided that this album is quote unquote alternative.
I think it's okay. I think I'm actually feel good about it in a way. I feel like I'm not one that pays attention to the Grammy process that much. I live in a kind of a weird bubble, and I just try to just be honest, truthful, and create art, music, contribute something that I'm proud of. And that's what I base the music on. But for me, everything's the blues. For me, I'm crazy a little bit. It's
Well,
I
you
hear
know what?
blues in everything, but it's okay. I think it's
You
just,
live it.
we just gotta just go with what it is. It is what it is.
It is what it is.
Yes.
I'm I guess the best word to say is proud of being able to witness your journey and to be this close to it. Like I said, we spoke a couple of years ago, and for this to be what people are digesting and considering is a it's just wonderful. I can't tell you more how proud I am of you as, like you said, as an artist,
Thank you. I
because
appreciate
this
that.
is art.
That's art.
This is art. I
Yes.
love it. I am so congratulations. We'll most likely be talking with you again,
Okay.
and we'll pick this conversation up at that time. And be interesting to see what kind of how the narrative has changed.
Right.
What's been added to the narrative since.
Well, one thing with me can guarantee there's going to be some changes. So
At that part. Okay. All right. So with all this wonderful conversation, I'm just gonna wrap this up. I'm gonna tell you right now, Jason is sorry that he didn't wasn't able to make this conversation.
Okay.
Yeah, he and I both said the last time that was one of our best interviews, and I'm here to tell you right now that this right here goes down, because this was what we started Impact for. We
Yes.
started to be able, so that we could have the real conversations about the motivations behind the art.
Yes.
So you are our perfect guest. So I'm gonna be figuring out how to have you back again sooner rather than later.
Well, thanks so much for having me.
You're welcome.
I'll
Take care.
Peace.
Peace.